There is a literary technique that's been used throughout the ages that's called a recognition scene. Shakespeare used it in his very last play, The Winter's Tale. Now, in the recognition scene, the main character returns to life at the end of the play. There's no rational explanation for this return to life. It happens at the end of comedies and romances. It's during this recognition scene that the truth is disclosed, the events are all worked out, the hero and the heroine are united, and all the characters acknowledge the changed state of affairs. James Cameron uses this masterfully in his movie Titanic. As we all know, that's just been re-released in 3D. And in this movie, at the end, we see the centenarian Rose standing alone at the railing of the exploration vessel that's been photographing the sunken Titanic. If you remember the film, with an extravagant gesture, she says goodbye to the past. Then she goes to her cabin. As she falls asleep, the camera pans across the photos of the life that she has led. And suddenly the scene dissolves, and the characters of the Titanic story come to life again. White-gloved stewards open doors, and the two young lovers enter the ship's elegant main salon. All around them are the characters of the film. But something very different has happened this time. They are assembled as they were not so much assembled in the real story. Because we see the first-class passengers with the immigrants from steerage, the ship's officers, the musicians and the waiters, and they're all there applauding Jack and Rose as they ascend the gilded staircase and embrace. Now, that kind of ending just doesn't work if one cannot get beyond seeing the world through rational, colored glasses. Too often, we all go about our business, whatever that might be, our going to work, our going to school, our taking care of family, our attending to friends and neighbors, to pets and strangers, our apartments and our homes, all those daily experiences of life. And the world seems to be as it is, as we find it, as we live it. We think the rules are set, and the extraordinary is bracketed out. But if we let go of our certainty that the world is seen most clearly and most truly as a rational place, maybe we might understand that this recognition scene used down through the centuries is simply a longing to believe. It's a longing to believe in what we celebrate this Easter night, that Christ has overcome death, that there is life beyond death. In Shakespeare's time, as well as in our time today, people are longing. There is a hunger for a message of hope. We are especially hungry because I believe that we all live with an instinctive kind of fear that's nestled in our bones, and it strikes when we least expect it. A young black boy is murdered in Florida. The country is torn apart. The concerns of racism. An American soldier goes berserk, killing innocent men and women and children in Afghanistan. Is it the stress of war? Iraq threatens nuclear power. Israel threatens war. The economic crisis continues with disagreements about health care and lost homes and unemployment. And just Friday night, right here in Syracuse, East Fayette Street, an 18-year-old boy is murdered in a drive-by shooting. There is a fear in our lives. And our fear is the same fear of those three women in Mark's gospel who go to the tomb to prepare Jesus' body for burial. They're heartbroken. They're afraid. Their primary concern is who will roll away the stone from the grave so they can attend to the body of Jesus. What's our primary concern? Our primary concern is who will roll away the stones of evil that confront our world. Those three women discover that the stone has been rolled away. A messenger awaits them and with the news, don't be so alarmed. Don't be afraid. Don't be astonished. You're looking for Jesus of Nazareth who was crucified. He's been raised. He's not here. This is the message of Easter for us. Don't be so alarmed. Don't be so afraid. Don't be so astonished. God is present and working in our world. And God will roll the stones from the graves that we find ourselves buried in. The graves of fear, the graves of disappointment, the graves of grief and loss, the graves of illness and old age and infirmity. And that God can roll away the stones of violence. You see, we come tonight to celebrate the basic message of Easter, that God is present in our lives to roll all these stones away. And that each one of us is given grace and courage, the grace and courage of Easter, to confront death and to really believe that life is eternal and to gain a peace from that. Just as the movie Titanic sends us out of the theater with an almost operatic image of a reunion beyond death that tempers the awe and the terror that we see as we watch that movie. Just as Titanic gives us an ending that reassures us about the possibility that at some level our wishes can be realized and social ties that connect us can be renewed. Easter should send us from this church reassured with hope that no stones are too big for our God to roll away. This is the basic message of Easter. On the third day, he rose again. The disciples experienced God in a totally new and different way when Jesus arose those 3 days later. What do we make of this then? Certainly 2,000 years ago, those who saw the risen Christ were persuaded that life was worth living, that death was a triviality, and an attitude curiously unlike that of the modern defeatist, who is so firmly persuaded that life is a disaster and death is a catastrophe. 100 years ago, at 11:40 p.m., April 15th, next Sunday, the sea was calm, the night was moonless, the water and the air were both near freezing. The unsinkable sank. 1,517 souls lost their lives. And since then, we have all been fascinated with this story. But for so many, it was merely a disaster and a catastrophe. James Cameron's film provides us with a different ending to this disaster. The stones were rolled from the graves of those lost at sea. A wonderful recognition scene. Easter is our recognition scene. where the truth is disclosed, the events are sorted out. We know from now on that we will be united, and all people acknowledge this changed state of affairs. The message is we don't have to be defeatists. Life is not a disaster. Death is not a major catastrophe. So if we believe, if we dare to get beyond seeing through those rational colored glasses, what we experience, as his disciples did 2,000 years ago, is a world of tremendous promise, a world of tremendous hope, a world of great renewal. Because the stones of our graves will be rolled open. And so the message of Easter is don't be so astonished, don't be so alarmed or so afraid. There's no reason to be afraid. On the third day, he rose again. And that's the promise he's given to us. And so as we gather this Easter evening, we come once again as Catholics and Christians and believers, as baptized members of this community. And the church asks us to once again renew those baptismal promises. To once again recommit ourselves to that deep-seated belief, the most important belief that we have as Christians and Catholics, is that Jesus rose from the dead. The apostles experienced something so new and different that when, after he was crucified, he was alive in their midst and everything changed. A whole new perspective was given to life and death. So did that touch us in the same way? Let us stand now to renew those baptismal promises.